No, I mean, I don't know who we talked about this with the other day, but at the beginning of the season, we're in Champions Cup. That was a little bit unique. So, could you attribute some of the slow start at home to being in that competition and that being a focus? Maybe. I still think the first two, draws, there was enough to get a win. So maybe you're also not sharp in what our group looks like and the personnel that we had on the field. So I think that was, a factor in maybe the slow start to the season. If you look at when some of the injuries happened in the middle of the year, and then, I guess the Charlotte and Chicago games stick out as two losses, after a couple injuries, I believe. So, if we're looking at maybe why we've dropped some points or why it looks different, injuries as well, the rotated lineups we've talked about, you could look at those things. Yeah, I still think there was probably 3 of those games where if we're a little bit better in how we finish chances, maybe, it's a different talking point. But the margins of winning, what did we win last year, you said? 13, and where we're at this year, maybe we don't hit that mark, but maybe we're still in double-digit wins. So those are some of the things I look back and think about.
Good. I think you were right. That was Glenn Crooks on Monday.
Yes, but yeah.
So, because we're coming up on the postseason, when you think about the idea of playing a postseason match or multiple postseason matches at TQL Stadium, does it still give you the same comfort or confidence that it gave you last year? And would a result tomorrow affect the way you feel about playing at your home?
It's better to play at home than on the road in the playoffs. So whatever our result looks like tomorrow, we'll know that our home form didn't, live up to the expectations. But once the playoff starts, the entirety of the regular season is erased, because now you're in a, I don't want to say a single elimination. It doesn't start that way, but you have to win games to advance. And so playoffs are just going to look and feel different. And I would like to think, even if, we don't get the results we're looking for in the next 2 games, once the playoffs start, the understanding of what it's going to take is going to be there, and the regular season's erased. So hopefully we get 2 good performances and 2 results going into it. I think that'd be good for the group, but I don't think, it necessarily means we can't step into the playoffs and look better than we have.
You mentioned the other day that you felt like your message wasn't either clear or strong enough to the group.
Mm-hmm.
What have the conversations been like since then? And I guess, what would your message be to the team at this point, if you don't mind going into that? Or do you feel like
I won't go into too much detail, but we haven't been good enough. And if we don't look like a team at this stage of the season the way we would expect, I can't just point the finger at players and say they're not doing their job. We weren't prepared enough to look better the last 2 games, and that starts with me. So it was a little bit more direct about the expectations of starting the game and how we want this game to look. But we can talk all we want. We need to go out and show that with how we perform as a team, because no individual is going to go and win us this game. The only way we're going to have success tomorrow and as we move forward is if we're a collective.
With the individual stuff, it kind of made me think of so Tyrone Marshall in 2021, when he was interim manager, he mentioned that was a problem that he was seeing, but he tied it to the possibility of guys maybe going after bonuses and individual things. Is that something that could be coming into play, or why do you think the individual efforts are?
Guys trying to do too much, because when things aren't going your way and when there's struggle and you're not creating as consistently as you'd like, or you don't have enough of the ball in dangerous areas to create, then when you find those limited moments, guys are, I think, making decisions to try to impact the game, on a more individual level than finding the right pass. I think there was 3 moments where we could have got into the box in, against New York City, and we elect to shoot from distance, and I think there was a pass for us to get in the box. So those moments are what I'm referring to. But as far as the bonus stuff, I put 0 into the notion that guys are trying to hit bonuses. But I certainly hope with how long we've been together, that's not how guys are thinking.
Pat, on Orlando, in the last 4, you guys have played in 3 goals total between the teams.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you think makes it so that the way you guys play, the way Orlando plays, makes for these tight, low-scoring games?
Orlando defensively is very good about initial pressure when they're stepping up, and if the pressure's broken, I think they recover as well as anybody in the league to regain their shape, to be able to defend the ball with the right aggression, and it's typically in a very connected way. So I think in the games that we've just analyzed, they've been really sharp defensively and doing a good job about getting pressure to the ball, and so they haven't been easy to break down. I don't want to talk too much about the previous games other than the fact that the personnel is very similar. That helps when you have consistency and in a message to a group that's been together and on the field game after game. So I think you could factor that into it, but they're well coached, and they know how to defend the ball. They know how to recover in transition and defend the box. They just compete in a really good way. I think they got a winning mentality.
Is that the biggest difference from their start of the season, where their results weren't as strong as they would have liked, to now where they're, I think, 5 of their last 7 wins?
Not sure, to be honest. Every team goes through their form or different peaks and dips in their form, and they started off the season slow, but I can't look back at that with enough certainty to say that's the difference in why they look better and more consistent and are getting better results now. But just speaking on the last month or two, they've been as good as anybody in the league and as consistent with the results and the performances. So they're as in form as any team.
With Ian, I wanted to ask about him because he's had a couple just rough moments recently, and he didn't start the other day. Was that tactical or performance-based, and what maybe does he need to be doing better at this stage?
With the decision, it was, let's see what teenage is about. We brought him in here to see if he could help us out, so we wanted to get some answers as far as that. He's obviously not fit. He's coming in at a time where it's difficult because everybody's ahead of him. So with the performance part, he was dealing with a foot issue going into this game, where I think there was hesitation about how it was going to impact his play, and so that factored into it. But his play can be better. I think he knows that too. I'm not just talking about the PK that we conceded, because he can do better, but it's a tough moment where guys are trying to defend the box against attackers that are crafty and can change direction, and you have to be perfect with your timing, or you run the risk of what we saw. So the on the ball decision making, the communication's a big part, and knowing how to help us release off the line, how to the relationship with Ian and his wingbacks to be able to get pressure to the ball. Those are some of the factors.
And then Champions Cup, you guys are still competing for a spot in that next year. Is that something that you guys discuss at this point, or I think there's maybe 2 teams that can possibly surpass you guys in that?
Guys, no, we mentioned it today. I believe a win gets us in. I'm not 100% certain, but in looking at it, I think that solidifies it. But again, not 100%. I just think it's 3 points positions us to compete in the Champions Cup next year. And if that's not the case, it certainly puts us in a better position going into that, final game to know what we need to do to get a berth into that competition, and that's the goal.
Can I ask real quick, just Cheeto, any update on, because when we talked, you hadn't received the results, and then.
Yeah, he's progressing in a good way. So just a lower leg injury, and he will hopefully be available for the Philly game.
And Sergio still in protocol?
Concussion protocol. He'll be cleared after the weekend.
Thank you very much.
I'll look at you. You want one more?
Do you mind?
No.
Here's a quick one. After looking at that PK for 3-1
Yeah.
the other night, did you guys decide that you felt like it was
If it was
close
flipped,
enough,
I'd say we probably would want a penalty.
Yeah.
So the initial view that you have on the tactical is like the officials saw. There's uncertainty behind it. So, the clear and obvious always comes into play in this. But I think it was enough to warrant a penalty.
All right.